What's up, guys? On this episode, we're going to be covering everything from dogs attacking other family dogs, dogs attacking the owner. We have barking issues, distraction issues, dogs that are at a point where they're ready to start challenging more with distractions, and a whole lot more on episode 23 of Dog Behavior Question Tuesday. Is it 22? It's 22. What's up, guys? This is Blake Rodriguez, and this is episode 22 of Dog Behavior Question Tuesday. Might be 23, I'm not sure about that. I think it's 22. But we're going to do something a little bit different. Normally, I have the guys placed. We're going to let these guys kind of do their thing. Why don't you take a little spin around the room, show who we have with us today. Anybody that is in place or on a placemat is there voluntarily. So that's something for you to see. We also got Maggie in the background as well. I don't know which way you're spinning. Spinning that way. We got Maggie over there. And anybody who's in place is just there voluntarily. Oh, we got Cole hanging out too. So for those of you that follow us on Instagram and Facebook and everything, you know a lot of these dogs and what they're here for, right? So first question is from Vincent. We have a lot of questions. I'm going to try to be detailed. I'm going to try to get through it without taking up an hour. But Vincent is the first question. Yes, how do I get my main aggressive dog to nicely greet people who come to our home? He has crazy anxiety for which he's on medication for and can be defensive around men, or very defensive around men. We're getting better at being pack leaders, but as soon as someone comes to our home, none of the training works. He barks, tries to lunge at them. We have him on a leash and won't calm down. He gets out of any crate we put him in and scratches at door frames, so we're nervous to put him in another room. Thoughts? Thank you so much. Okay, first thing I'm gonna say, I'm not a huge fan of medication. I don't think the medication is doing anything. I will, in super rare cases, maybe say, okay, I can see why the medication is going to help you if you understand that you're working on structure and the medication is just helping you in the beginning stages. But as a whole, to fix it, it's just not going to work. Obviously, you know that. A couple of things. Let's start looking at a few things. He's got to be able to hold place, and you have to be able to follow through. It looks like your dog knows what to do, but when the distractions comes, that's when you're in trouble. So follow through is a must. If you can't follow through, how do we set ourselves up so that we can, right? Let's look at a couple things here. He tries to bark and lunge at them. You have him on leash. What is he walking on, or what is he on? Is he on a regular flat buckle collar? Is he on a harness? Is he on a martingale or something like that? Are you doing any remote collar training prior to getting into problems? Just teaching a dog what to do, because personally, I'm an actual big fan of prong collars and remote collars if you're using it the right way, because you can be softer with those tools than any other tool on the market, in my opinion, but you can also match when a dog needs it, and it looks like a dog's not really taking you seriously, right? There are some situations, even though we want to be in a position to teach our dogs what to do and tell them what to do and steer them in a direction to have them make right choices on their own, they do need more help, and sometimes we do need to be taken seriously. No different than police officers, no different than your boss. As a boss, you want the work environment to be friendly and everything, and you want your employees and everyone to have a good time, but at some point, there might be something they don't want to do, and you have to lay down the law, right? So it's a little bit different here, but in those situations, we have to see what we're asking for regularly. How often are you practicing these things? Are you only practicing it when guests come over? Another thing is, how involved are you in the dog's regular life? Meaning, does the dog get certain luxuries for free, or do they actually come from you? Does the dog's behavior matter? Meaning that depending on how they behave or don't behave, is based on what they get and don't get, right? Do you work your dog for food? Things like that are very, very important. Let's see what we're looking at here. He has crazy anxiety. Anxiety is one of the bigger issues. The fact that he gets out of any crate and stuff, some people will say, all right, well, don't crate him. And he's like, fine, but when you're in certain situations, now what do, right? The dog's got to learn, and this is actually something I'm going to say, before you even start tackling people and stuff like that, get your dog to learn how to like stay in a crate and be okay with that. That's a much less dangerous situation, and if you can get a solid, sturdy crate, and they have them. I don't know the name brands, but they have them for like Belgian Malinois and stuff like that, these like steel crates. It's gonna help. If he can learn how to get over that and you can help him through those things, you can teach him how to relax in there, you're gonna be in a really solid place to have him have a certain urge or a certain impulse and know how to actually deal with that instead of, I gotta get out of here and just fighting through it. If he's fighting through crates, there's no way in hell he's gonna be listening to you and stuff like that, right? So we kinda gotta slow it down a little bit, teach him to hold place, teach him to hold place away from you, teach him to hold place while you're getting food, while you're preparing his food, where he's not like this, you know, like he's not, oh, okay, we're holding place, what's going on? He learns how to wait, people come to the door. There's so many ways to look at it, but I think you need to slow things down a little bit. That's pretty important. Next question is gonna be from Geektard. What's going on? Thank you for following us on Periscope. I see you've been involved in our Periscope sessions, and I love that, appreciate that. My dog just went to the vet for gastric. I'm not sure if that's if it's spelled properly, then I'm just an idiot and doesn't know what that is. But gastric bypass or something, and the reason could be either that he ate something bad or because of stress levels. So my question is, do you think a muzzle is a good idea to prevent him from eating everything outdoors, or how do I help him lower his stress? It seems like he stresses when he's not in charge. Thanks. Okay, first thing I'm gonna go ahead and say, he needs to find comfort in you being in charge and him not being in charge. But he should find comfort in realizing that he's in charge of what he gets and doesn't get, meaning that his choices matter. He knows that when he listens to you, it actually benefits him, so it pays to listen. As far as the muzzle goes, if it's gonna help to empower you initially, let's go for it. But overall, you're really just stopping something physically, and you're not teaching it not to happen, right? So if I take my brother away from, I don't know, what's a good example? Take him away from something, but man, what's a good example for that? Just bottom line, basically, if you're using a muzzle, it's more stopping him physically. It's a Band-Aid on an amputated leg rather than teaching him not to do it, right? I actually have a story of when I first started getting into training.
I guess it would be like stocking your fridge with healthy stuff versus like having self-control just not to eat it in the first place. You know?
Yeah, no, well, that's a good point. And then there's certain steps and stages. So that's what I mean. Like if the muzzle is going to help initially, awesome. But what Andrew said was like stocking your fridge with healthy snacks and options versus having like the willpower to see all the bad stuff and just choosing not to eat it. Your dog might not be ready for that, right? So you might want to start him slow. But overall, you want to teach your dog not to do it. I do have a story when I first started getting into this. There was this lady who did not have an aggressive dog, but the dog picked up everything off the floor and stuff, and the state of mind, the dog was an anxious wreck. And was always trying to get stuff, and she didn't really believe in like correcting the dog. So what she did was she put a muzzle on the dog, and the dog walked around on like everyday walks with a muzzle on, and the dog wasn't aggressive. So the poor thing like never really learned to not do something. Andrew, you're gonna have to get that delivery for the meat, which is coming right now. I'll stay here. And what ended up happening was you had, hold on one sec, I'll go right back to that spot, down. Good. You had a dog that, Samson, cut it out, that St. Gennaro's Feast ended up walking through there without a muzzle. It was like a couple blocks away. The dog saw a piece of chicken, went for it. It had a little piece of barbecue skewer in it, and that actually destroyed his insides. They had surgery, which was like tens of thousands of dollars like later, and long story short, the dog still passed away. So we do want to get down to the root of it. If your dog is stressing that much, we have to like eliminate excitement and really, really slow things down. Teach a dog how to enjoy life slower. When you're incorporating food, food shouldn't be an exciting thing. Food should be a very calming thing. Your interactions when you're getting the leash, you get what you pet. Petting very calm, really, really slowing things down. It's super, super, super important. Let me see where we are here. You wanna go grab that? Yeah. Lowering his stress overall, giving him more rules and direction and structure in a way where it puts him in a position to be successful, and he understands what to do when he gets those directions. So you start really, really small and you build your way up. It's a little bit hard to kind of give those examples here, but overall, that's really, really what we want to work on. Samson, hey, so he's a little nervous here. I'm just going to go ahead and place him here. Samson, place. Good, good. Down. Good, good. Hey, Andrew, let's try to get that a little quick. Just let them know we're filming too, just so it's not. So let's see what else we're doing. Silver Lake Labradoodles. How do I get my dog, or how do I get my Labrador to stop barking when someone else is at the door? She also sneaks into the kitchen and trash. You have a dog that lacks, very simple, straightforward, a dog that lacks impulse control. Your dog has an urge and an impulse to bark and lunge, or maybe not lunge at the door, but is also sneaking into trash and stuff. You need to start working on the impulses, the three main impulses that your dog has. Almost all distractions are gonna fall under either nose, eyes, or ears. So you have a distraction of the nose, the eyes, or the ears. You need to teach your dog and drill your dog through regular situations and scenarios where they know better. I would also stop feeding your dog in the kitchen, and I would also stop allowing your dog in the kitchen. That way you can really catch that. I would even consider messing around with superstitious corrections when in the kitchen, so that your dog is learning to not only, your dog is learning to not only not be in the kitchen when you're around, but also make the choice to not be in the kitchen when you're not around also, right? And if that's a little bit of a challenge, you set that up so that when you're not around, you can still monitor that, whether that's camera or something else, but also utilize crating your dog, because until you're able to be in a position where you don't need to supervise your dog, you need to make sure that when you're not supervising your dog, they're not in a position to make bad choices. So definitely crate your dog in that situation. As far as the barking, it's the same thing. You have to teach physical first. Don't do this, hang out over here, give the dog something else to do. And then eventually you have to get to a point where you're correcting for the barking if you don't want the barking to happen. And the correction has to be something that's done in a meaningful way. And that could be anything. That could be saying no, that can be a can of pennies, that could be a physical correction, that could be a leash correction, that could be remote, whatever it is, depending on how you've trained your dog. But if you want something to be known not to do it, giving a dog something else and replacing it rather than teaching your dog, listen, you can choose to make this other choice, but I also have to make it clear that this is something that's not wanted. That's important. It's very, very rare that simply just teaching a dog another choice puts you in a position where it doesn't require you to teach them, I don't want you doing that also. Now, if you don't care and you're like, hey, I don't want you doing that, but I'd rather you do this, and you don't really care if they do that other thing again, then whatever, just teach them another choice. But if it's a serious situation, like for me, if I don't want my dog doing something, I want to make it clear, I'm going to correct my dog, right? And because my language is so strong, this is actually my dog right here, because my language is so strong with him, I can assure you, out of any dog I've ever worked with, the corrections that I give are way more harsh on my dog than any other dog, because he understands what's expected. So if I have to correct him, he also doesn't take it personally, and he'll just be like, oh, okay, you don't want me doing that. Okay, awesome. So that's kind of important. I'm gonna go pull up a chair really quickly, because this is kind of funny. So you can like walk around and see, we always place our dogs. These guys were like running around playing, and look at Dizzy. Dizzy's tired, but once they've gotten that spurt in, they choose to just kind of hang out. So almost all dogs, with the exception of these three, are in place, and we didn't place them at all. That's just what dogs do kind of naturally. Let me go grab this chair real quick. Calming canine dog training. Hi, Blake. I've seen some of your pack walks of up to 10 dogs. When you're holding all of the leashes in one hand, how do you correct one dog without correcting all of them? If you could shed some light on how you hold the leashes with one dog in the pack, or when one dog in the pack needs some information or correction and you're holding more than one leash in the same hand, that would be helpful. Okay, in short, you kind of got to be like a puppeteer. You need a couple things. Let me grab a leash. Grab one of these. So when I am, can you zoom in on my hands here? When I am walking a dog, I don't have the leashes come out of my thumb and my pointer finger. I don't want the first thing to be my leash coming out of my hand, the dog's being over here. So instead of being here, put this in my pocket real quick. Instead of being here, I hold all leashes here. So from my hand to the dog's head, it actually comes out of the backside. Now when I'm holding multiple leashes, we're gonna grab a bunch right now, and I'm walking a bunch of dogs, I tend, there's really no other way to explain it but just kind of show it. So I'll grab this leash, grab this, grab this. I tend to have leashes here, and sometimes they fall in different areas of my fingers depending on what it is. But more importantly, I can feel. So the way that I see through feeling in the leash. And I know when I feel tension in some areas, what dog it is. So you can be pretty good if you have different lengths in leashes at correcting a dog that has the most length in the leash or the one that has the shortest. Positioning is really important. Another thing too, sometimes my foot, sometimes my hands, my loose hands is involved in that. It really depends on what I'm doing. More often than not, I'm in a position to do what I need to do here. And a lot of times my body language, I'm really good with like my body language and my energy that projects through that is pretty much enough with this stuff here. So in short, that's pretty much what I do. We also make sure that, of course, there's going to be corrections and stuff and overall direction, but we also make sure that we're not walking a large pack. Even though the dogs that we walk are problematic and they're in our board and train program, we make sure, for the most part, that they're at a certain point where we know that if we're using the leash or whatever it is, we can kind of get through to them. When I'm walking dogs in packs, I'm actually not a huge fan of using remote collars, and I've done it before. I mean, there's some exceptions when I've used it for certain dogs, but I like to be more free. I find that I can just speak through my body a little bit clearer. But if I'm working one-on-one and a dog is struggling, I'd rather have a remote collar and help that dog because I'm using that sensation to mimic what my body is saying and kind of give relevance to that. So it's a little bit hard. I remember one time I shot a video. I never ended up uploading it on my Facebook page to kind of show how we do it. But maybe that's something that we'll do in the next couple of days when we're on a pack walk, is Andrew will get up behind me and just show where my hands are so you can see how we do it. It's really difficult to explain, but it might be easier to see. You basically got to be a puppeteer. I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that or.
I'm constantly adjusting the leash lengths and stuff. It's not like never like a set one thing to go. It's like I'm constantly adjusting the leash lengths. And a lot of it's like the direction which my wrist goes in.
Yeah, that's a good point. So like if you're ever working with food or you've ever seen me working with food where we say to hold it here, it really like where you turn your wrist, how you want to guide this way or this way, this way or this way. It's pretty similar with the leash also. So what Andrew said was he's constantly adjusting the length in the leash based on where the dogs are. So that happens. But a lot of the direction that you're giving is based on what direction your leash or your hand is going in. And that's going to have a pretty big impact on who's getting pressure and who's not. Let's see, but the next time we go on a pack walk, we'll get that on film. So keep tabs on our Facebook and Instagram page, and I'll try to get that up this week for you. Let's see what we have here. Meatball. Hey Blake, this question is for a friend of mine. I actually saw this text and just remembered just now. Sorry for not getting back to you. This question is for a friend of mine. She has a 1-year-old female, 25 pounds, and in your opinion, a very sweet dog, just with little structure in place. I've helped her with the walks on prong, and she does well. I've worked with her to lay down some basic obedience, and she's fine. However, when I'm not there, she allegedly turns into a growly, lunging, and sometimes biting dog when she doesn't want to do something. The dog has growled at me once or twice too, but a quick verbal and touch correction put a stop to that. The owner is scared to even pick up the leash. I asked her to keep it on so she can guide the dog. Okay, and the dog will often growl at her when she does. Any thoughts on building the owner's confidence with the dog and in general? Okay, so what you did was probably like the best instinctual thing you could have done, but obviously now we're dealing with a human that is nervous and scared. So if she's keeping a leash on in the house, I would suggest making sure that leash is a little bit longer. And if she wants to not get so confrontational because she's scared about that, I would suggest that she starts working with her dog a little bit more. And again, the first thing I'm going to go to is I'm going to turn to food for that, especially if somebody wants it to be less confrontational. Because, I mean, you went in there and you addressed it, and that was that. I could probably do the same. But obviously in this situation, controlling more of the dog's environment is going to put the dog in a position in the beginning that's, I guess, kind of forceful, where they must listen to the human, right? So she has to find ways to be a little bit more intelligent on how to be in control of the surroundings and the overall resources, so a dog must listen, otherwise they don't get it. And that's gonna kind of change things a little bit, where the dog is like, all right, I kind of got to listen, and she'll begin to get a little bit more confident, even if it's as simple as direction, because that's how Muffin was. Muffin would like snap at you if you did anything like that went against what he wanted to do, which is taking direction. So basically what we did, we used a lot of food. We started pairing that with leash, and something as simple as withholding food and just saying nope and backing away would frustrate him without a correction. So we would build that. The second he would let up a little bit, good, we would feed him and we would mark that. And then eventually we add a leash to it, a little bit of a pop. Or he's walking that way, I give him a little bit of a leash pop. He changes directions, a little bit startled, but the second he changes directions, good boy, boom, and the food comes. And you just change the understanding of what getting direction or receiving direction on the dog's end actually means for the dog. The sooner they realize that listening to it pays off, the easier that things are going to go, for sure. Carlo, Blake, hi, buddy. Thanks for answering my last question. Well, my dog has got all right, I'm going to read this a little bit. My dog has made very good progress. You worked on recall, place, sit down, etc. All very good. But when people arrived at home, everything changes. She doesn't listen to orders. She gets very anxious and nervous. She doesn't stay in place. She quickly gets disruptive. In that moment, should I raise the level of the e-collar? How should I work that? Okay, this is actually a great question. First thing I'm going to go ahead and say is do not jump to just raising the e-collar. You must be sure that your dog knows the e-collar. You must be sure that your dog is successful doing it without the remote collar. I'm going to go ahead and say that you should probably proof things a little bit easier and set yourself up for success a little bit more by having a long line and being able to follow through, having a leash that drags, so when your dog makes a mistake, you can catch that, correct that, bring the dog back, and have success doing that with the leash. If you're starting to have success doing with that, then you can begin to pair the remote over, because working with high levels will tend to inhibit behavior a little bit, but you want to make sure it's known, so that way you can catch it with the leash, remote, nope, a little bit down the road, and then you can begin to use the e-collar. If you have a nervous and anxious dog, you don't want to just be dialing up on levels and just assuming that the dog knows what to do. You want to make sure that you're taking your time with that, because you don't want the remote collar to be something that a dog fears, right? That's really, really important. So definitely take your time, drill it a little bit more. Take your time as you build up with distractions. Let's see if I can be a little bit more specific here. When people arrive at home. So one thing I would do is, if, let's say, a placemat is here, and I'm over here, and the door is over there, you need to be aware of physical position. What are you laughing at?
I was just going to mention also that you should be practicing this stuff to where you have the time to do it. Like where you have the time to win
Yeah, that's a good point. So what Andrew said is like, you want to make sure that when you're practicing this stuff, you actually have the time to do it, where you have the time to be successful and win. That way, if there's a struggle, you're going to be able to follow through. You're not going to try it and just kind of give up. So one thing that's super important, I'm going to grab this placemat. If I am the dog, I can't believe I'm about to do this right now. If I am the dog and I am on the placemat, right? And I'm chilling out. You're kind of over here or you're over here or something, and the door's over there. More often than not, a dog is going to want to face their hips toward the door. Even if they're laying down, they're going to want to be here. If you have a dog that is positionally laying down here first, and the doorbell rings or people come over, the second the dog perks up, you want to actually catch and address at the head with the leash in a way where the dog doesn't get up off a place. So you got to find that finesse where you can catch this, pressure comes off on the leash before the dog's able to do this. And that's what you want to interrupt. So they're learning how to actually rest here instead of doing this and staying here and kind of like really, really building up. You don't want to see that. So that's kind of what you want to change. And sometimes creating a little bit of this and then pressure coming off is going to help the dog to realize that physically they can focus on something else. That's what I would suggest, but you really got to take it slower. I mean, it's only been a week or two since you've been practicing, since you've asked some other questions, so these things take time. You know, some of the dogs that come here, they're here for like 5 weeks. So, you know, and they're just kind of getting into the groove of things. I mean, sure, we get really, really good results in 2, but they're not perfect, right? So you really want to take your time with that stuff. But so far, so good. I'm really happy to see that you're making progress. That's awesome, considering like you're doing all this just off of watching like free videos. I mean, like really like give yourself a pat on the back. That's pretty rad, for sure. I'm out of breath from doing that. Kelly, hi Blake. I know you probably have been asked this question before or maybe have a video about it, but I was curious to find out what it took for you and your business to become so successful. I'd love to hear how you got to where you are today. I'm in school right now for dog training and have also done a shadow program with Karina at the Loyal Hounds, and I just want to know what I have to look forward to. Okay, first thing I'm gonna say, what you have to look forward to is a lot of haters and critics. So you need to be tough as nails, and you need to be able to every day keep putting in work, kicking ass, and proving people wrong. How did I start? Let's see what the question is, or how the business becomes so successful. I didn't listen to people. in a nutshell, no. Let's kind of get into this. So I had a dog that was a rebel. Right, this guy right here. He's 8 years old. And I was doing everything wrong with him before I started doing things right. And I was reading everything, and everything that I read was contradicting the next thing. So one book was awesome, and I was like, wow, that's a really cool idea. And then the next thing bashed and critiqued that. But I was like, wow, that was a cool idea that they had too, but they didn't like the other one. And then I read and watched this video, and it was the same thing. Trainers bashing other methods and this and that. But I really liked little pieces from everything that they were saying. So I tried things, they didn't work. I tried things, this worked, this didn't work. I was struggling. And long story short, I was too competitive of an individual to have a dog that I enjoyed and loved that I also struggled with. So I made sure I wasn't going to have that. And through a lot of trial and error, I got to a point where I figured out from a common sense point of view, keeping an open mind, not getting like emotional and irrational like majority of people do, I started figuring things out. And with that came just the New York City hustle business idea. I was working in and out of restaurants, out of college and stuff. And I said, you know what? I have a dog, I have to walk X amount of times a day. What if I started walking dogs as like a dog walking company? And people laughed, family laughed, my girlfriend, who's now my wife at the time, laughed. And she said, you know, you and your ideas, blah, 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 this and that. and I made it happen. The problem was I was getting a lot of problem dogs because everyone and their mother is a dog trainer and a dog walker out here. So I was getting problem dogs because no one wanted to hire this kid with no credibility, no nothing, all right? So I got these problem dogs that other trainers and walkers gave up on, and I made it work. I didn't know what I was doing. I was good at what I was doing, but I didn't know what I was doing. So long story short, I was making it work, and that gained my reputation. It was like Fido and Spartacus together, like you're walking them. Like, yeah, I've been walking them for the last 2 months. Why? They're like, they don't get along. And it's like, oh, really? I didn't know that. They've been walking in my pack for the last 2 months. So word started getting out, and people were like, hey man, can you train my dog? Or are you a dog trainer? Hey, where'd you get your dog trainer? Are you a dog trainer? And I thought the relationship and what I was doing was normal, and what I had with my dog was normal. One day I had a little bit of an out-of-body experience where I looked around at a dog park, and I saw that everybody that loved their dog, how do I even word this? Everybody that loved their dog didn't have control over their dog. Or to put it even better, the thing that people loved most was the most stressful part of their life, right? And I looked and I was like, wow, it's not the same for me. Maybe I do have something here. So I started getting into training, helping friends, a little bit of money here and there. And then I started learning, attending different seminars, reading books. By definition, I'm self-taught. I don't believe that really. I didn't go to school for this. But also, there really weren't any schools that were dealing with behavior problems. It was all a lot of trick-based stuff in food, which are things that I already kind of knew. I wanted to kind of go beyond that and kind of see that. And the other extreme was obedience, sport dog training and stuff. And really for behavior work, there wasn't anything there. So it was kind of figure it out as you go along. Started training, started being really, really successful with results that we were getting. And that's where we got to the point where we had the training center. I'm sure I missed a lot of important parts of that story, but long story short, we just kept getting results that were sticking, and it was going against the proper way, or this or that, or the person who has 50 years experience. Then I started getting the trainers with their certificates up the wazoo and giving me their personal dogs and keeping it on the low. Listen, I've been working with these dogs for years, but I struggle with this dog, and that's when I knew that I kind of had something. Started training dogs and making a bunch of in-homes and having dogs at my place and stuff at a New York City apartment. And it was just getting too busy, so I knew we were ready for a training facility. And long story short, that's where we got where we are today. And obviously there's a social media component to that. I guess one thing that I did miss out on is when I started walking dogs, I was also filming the problem dogs. So if you go to our YouTube video, the first 3 videos were walking clients. They weren't even, the first 3 or 4 videos, they weren't even dogs that was training, working with the owners. I was just training them so that I can actually get you on a leash and walk you outside. So I started filming those things, and that's what gave me credibility. That's what caught the eye of some other trainers. That's what caught the eye of Cesar Milan. Then I went to a workshop of his. Then he started referring clients to me, and now I think I'm one of the 4 people on the East Coast that he refers clients to. So that's that also helps to put me on the map as well. And then just being in that network, going there, networking, meeting people. A lot of things were before Facebook was so big. Long story short, that's where I am here today. So hopefully that helps. I guess I should sit down and actually elaborate on that story one day and turn that into a video. But thank you for the question. Hoops, hey Blake, thanks for all the incredible videos and info that you put out. I have a 8-month-old female lab that I'm now working with on e-collar after giving her a good foundation on the basics. Awesome, love that. She's doing great with downstay, good with off-leash heel, and good with off-leash recall without major distractions. The problems comes up when she spots another dog running around or close by, and sometimes even another person she knows that has played with before. If she's not in a specific downstay, she'll take off for the other dog or person or play. It's never in an aggressive way, just super excited to play. She won't break off and come back as it's like she doesn't even hear the command. Okay, then I have to turn the collar way up to get her to come back. How can I proof this recall every time, no matter what, no matter how tempting the distraction? Okay, what you need to do is you need to do more leash work. You need to be able to follow through and stop relying on the e-collar so much when you get that high of a distraction. Another thing that I would do is I would practice more drive-bys. And we've spoken about this in earlier episodes of this show, where when stuff is going on, you kind of want to walk to that dog park, seeing in the distance. You kind of want to walk to those dogs, but see them in the distance, and let your dog see that. And instead of just going straight, calling your dog back to you, straight toward them, calling your dog back to you, you want to make wider U-turns or sort of circles, so the dog knows, come over here, you guys are the dog. I have my dog in the left hand on a leash. We're kind of walking this way, and as we walk this way and she sees it, I can focus on creating the head that goes this way. Good girl, and maybe reward that with food, who knows, but teach her how to actually walk away. And you can do that with tap-in turns. Eventually, in the beginning, you're relying more on the leash and just letting her feel remote and doing it and praising and rewarding. Keep it moving this way. You do that a couple times. Eventually, you're walking over and you're using less and less leash, more remote. She's turning, good girl, boom, and then you're moving forward, or you're moving in the opposite direction. And you drill it and drill it and drill it, and slowly the leash pressure that you're using replaces with remote, and you're timing that. Eventually, you should be fine. It takes a little bit of time, but I mean, how else did we proof with Samson and Soko? Because I can tell you right now, I can call Soko off mid-chase of a deer, but it's really just through like being relevant and being like present and like being the one that it's like, listen, I'm your best friend, but like, hey, there's certain things you don't do, because that could, even though it's friendly and playful, that could be dangerous in a different situation. You know what I mean? Anything you would suggest?
Just when the dog's still young, more practice and follow through, right? Like it's just
Yeah.
what situations you find yourself into, and you just always being prepared to follow through and succeed.
Yeah. Always be prepared to follow through and succeed. Practice more follow through, especially the fact that your dog is younger. And don't be afraid to use food, not to get the choice, but to actually reward the good choice. Because eventually what's going to happen is your dog is going to be more eager and happy to make the choice, because they know that's a better choice that benefits them, right?
I would also add, if you think your dog's like, you're going to struggle and your dog's not going to be successful, like take a couple steps back, but then get success, don't just like throw your dog in the...
Yeah, that's a good thing. So Andrew's like, don't throw your dog in the fire pit right away. If you don't feel that you're going to be successful in a certain situation, utilize that situation, but distance yourself a little bit. Creating more of a proximity and more of a gap, and taking wider turns is going to help you to be successful in that situation. Let's see what else. Promotion. Hey Blake, I've been teaching my dog long duration place, and with all your videos, he's been making amazing progress. Guys, first off, I'm loving hearing that like all you guys are being helped just off of the videos that we post. For those of you that don't know, we post all over the place. YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Periscope, and it's all free. Absolutely free, okay? Although he can hold place for about an hour, at times I will have problems with him whining to sounds of the TV or if he hears people outside. I think he's super anxious and feels like he needs to be involved. Me telling him nope doesn't make it better, but sometimes worse. Any suggestions? Yeah, you want your direction to start representing more of a soothing sensation rather than stressing him out. So what I would focus more on is making sure your dog is exercised a bit, and when you're doing that stuff, make sure your corrections are showing him something else to do rather than just interrupting. Because right now the interrupting is probably just building more stress. You want to interrupt, show him something else. Nope, do this. Nope, do this. Nope, do this. And it could be something as easy as a physical, or helping him with movement and getting him to do something else. It's kind of tough to explain 100%, but the whining on the TVs, you want to be able to interrupt that to the point where he takes that seriously, but if you see that he doesn't understand interruption corrections, you have to slow it back down and do it a little bit softer. If they're ready for it, like my dog, I would interrupt that right away. Hey, cut it out. And that would be a leash pop or something, because the dog knows better. But if your dog is like stressing out, you have to help to show them what the other choice can actually be. And I would say at this point, try to catch early level concern before the whining starts. There's likely going to be some subtle cue where your dog is chilling out and then does this before the whining starts, or if he's laying down and is just starting to whine, interrupt and then give him something else to do. That's honestly in the stage that I'm assuming you're in, because of course I don't see it. I would say that's where you are right now. Eventually it should be just as simple as a correction, but if correction is driving him more up, those corrections aren't clear, so you have to go a little bit more back to basics. Let's see, and then the last question, I see some of you guys got these questions in last minute, and that's our fault because it is Tuesday and we're filming it now. This should have been up on YouTube already. Spockquin, my parents' dog has begun attacking my dog in the mornings when my mom wakes up. She is clearly being possessive. Hold on 1 second, because I just read that, but I didn't actually comprehend it. My parents' dog has begun attacking your dog. Okay. She is clearly being possessive of her and does not want to approach her. Want your dog to approach. He does not even, what's up, Maxwell? He does not even approach her in an exciting manner at this point. If he's just in my mom's proximity, she attacks him. I'm sure it started off with a fight between the two, is now simply in her head to just attack him regardless. It will only happen to my mom, never when I'm there, and not with my dad either. Try to explain to my mom that she is doing it. Okay, look, I don't have to read the rest of this to kind of know. And I see the bottom, it says, this has already cost you a trip to the vet for a puncture and it happened 4 times in 2 to 3 weeks. Okay, your mom's got to get with the program. Stop having your mom treat that dog differently. That dog needs to be separated from your mother, not entirely, but the dog has to practice place, and the dog has to practice being excluded from the circle. If the dog that can't get into your mother is the one that's always on the outside, the roles need to be reversed a little bit. That dog needs to stay away, beat it, while this one stays, and that you really have to have that dog be distant from your mother and learn how to actually do that. That dog probably is going to struggle doing that, so that's your start. That's very, very important. If the dog is being possessive of your mother, stop allowing the dog to be in a position to be possessive, to be in a position to guard, right? We need to kind of switch roles so that the dog knows how to be on the outside, struggle being on the outside, get comfortable, and learn that, wow, I'm on the outside until you guys are letting me in. It puts a dog in a position where they start asking and looking for you or for her for direction, rather than ignoring her and thinking that they already have these luxuries and they're the ones that are in charge to say who, what, where, when, and how. It's not the way it works, right? So roles need to be switched for sure. And definitely consult a professional in your area. If we can't do a Skype session or you can't get me out to you or something like that, get someone in your area, because if the dog's already causing that type of damage, this might require more than just watching videos, you know what I mean? And your mom's got to be on board, otherwise somebody's going to get seriously hurt. Okay, that is it for these questions. Thanks, guys, so much. I know it was a little bit of a longer episode, but hope that you guys valued from this as always. I will see you guys next week. Make sure to tune in to us on Periscope so we can kick it live, and you guys can actually do some Q&A with us live in the middle of the session. All right, take care, guys.